My name is Sienna Blake, and for a long time I believed the internet was my safe space. It was where I could paint my emotions, sell my art, and connect with people who understood me better than the ones in my real life. But I was wrong. The same place that built me up would one day break me in ways I never thought possible. I was 27, living in a tiny apartment in Los Angeles, painting until dawn and selling my digital art through social media. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. My art was slowly getting attention. My followers grew, brands reached out, and for the first time, I felt like I was becoming someone. And then came Ethan. He entered my life like a storybook ending. Handsome, charming, creative, a photographer who loved my art and said he saw something real in me. We met at an art exhibit, and it felt like the universe was whispering that this was my person. Ethan wasn't just a boy friend, he became my collaborator, my biggest supporter. He took pictures that I would turn into paintings. We worked late into the night, sipping wine, dreaming of exhibitions and success. It was perfect, or so I thought. The first cracks appeared when Ethan started talking about engagement, not with me, but with my followers. He suggested I should post more personal content, photos of us together behind the scenes moments, even my emotional breakdowns. At first, it sounded like marketing advice. I trusted him. I thought he wanted the best for me. But somewhere deep inside, I felt something off. One night while I slept, Ethan used my laptop. I didn't know then that he had copied everything: my private messages, my unreleased art files, even my journal entries that I typed when I couldn't sleep. The next morning, the internet wasn't my home anymore. It was a battlefield. Someone had posted a private, unfinished art piece of mine, one that was deeply personal, one I never intended to share, with a caption claiming it was plagiarized. The account that posted it had screenshots of my private chats, twisted out of context, edited to make me look manipulative and fake. Within hours, hashtags like #Sienna, the fraud, and #ArtLiar started trending. Ethan comforted me at first. He held me while I cried, told me to ignore it, said it would blow over, but he never once posted anything to defend me. Days turned into weeks. I lost clients. My art commissions were canceled. Even my online friends turned away. Nobody wanted to be associated with someone branded a fraud. And then I found out the truth. My best friend, Lena, called me one night in tears. She told me she'd seen Ethan at a party bragging about how he had managed my career, how he made me popular, and how I had become too proud. And then she said it, "Sienna, he's the one who leaked everything." It felt like the floor disappeared beneath me. All those nights he held me while I cried were lies. All those marketing tips and traps. He had taken everything I built, everything I loved, and burned it for attention. I confronted him. My voice shook, but I was done crying. He laughed. He actually laughed. "You were nothing before me," he said. "You needed me to make people care." That night I packed my things and left. No explanations, no good bye posts, just silence. For months I disappeared. I stayed offline. People said I was gone, that I'd quit. Maybe I had, but not forever, because while the world thought I was broken, I was building something stronger, something that would make the same world listen and regret ever calling me a fraud. When you disappear, people forget you. That's what I learned in the first few months of silence. The world keeps scrolling. Outrage has a short lifespan, but pain is patient. It doesn't leave. It simmers quietly until you decide what to do with it. I lived in a small coastal town 3 hours north of Los Angeles. No why. 5 for the first month. I worked at a local cafe, washed dishes, and painted again. Not for money, not for attention, but because I needed to remember who I was before the noise. Each stroke of color felt like stitching myself back together. There were nights when I'd stare at the ocean and ask myself, why did I let him destroy me? And every time the answer echoed back in the waves, you trusted the wrong person. Now trust yourself. That's when I made a decision. I wouldn't just move on. I would rise again, not as the girl they destroyed, but as the woman who'd make them watch. So I started over under a new name, Nova Hale. No one knew who I was. I created a brand new art page, no face, no personal details, just raw art that told stories of betrayal, loneliness, and rebirth. My paintings were different now, darker, sharper, alive with a kind of energy that came from pain. To my surprise, people connected. They didn't know my name, but they felt my emotions. One of my first posts, titled "The Hands That Burned Me," went viral overnight. It wasn't pretty. It was brutal. A hand made of fire holding a fragile glass heart. People shared it with captions like, "This artist understands pain." That was my first victory, not revenge yet, but power returning. Meanwhile, Ethan was thriving, or pretending to. I checked his page one night from a borrowed phone. He was now calling himself a creative director, working with some influencer who was basically a prettier, louder version of me. They posted couple photos, laughing in expensive restaurants. The sight used to make me ache. Now it made me smile, because the more I looked, the more cracks I saw. He'd started to recycle old projects. His art wasn't original anymore. The comments were turning sour. Didn't Sienna do this first? Why does this look copied? The internet never forgets. It just waits for the right reminder, and I was going to be that reminder. 6 months later, Nova Hale had 300 followers. I had galleries reaching out, journalists trying to uncover who I was. But I wasn't ready to show my face. Not yet. Instead, I planned my move carefully. I created a digital art collection called the Phoenix Project. Each painting told a part of my story: the betrayal, the fall, the rebirth. The final piece, a self-portrait, half of my face hidden in shadow, half burning in gold light. I scheduled its release exactly 1 year after Ethan's betrayal. The night before launch, I barely slept. Not because I was scared, but because I could feel the storm coming. My heart beat like thunder when I posted the final piece with the caption, "To the ones who tried to destroy me, thank you for teaching me how to rise." It exploded. Within hours, my art was everywhere, shared by celebrities, featured in digital magazines. People speculated wildly, who is Nova Hale? And then someone noticed something. A signature in the corner of the final piece. Very faint, almost hidden, but visible enough. It said, "Sienna Blake." The internet erupted. Is Nova Hale actually Sienna Blake? Was this her comeback? Wait, wasn't she accused of fraud? And that's when the tide turned. People started revisiting the old story. New viewers noticed inconsistencies in the evidence that had ruined me. They saw that the screenshots didn't match my writing style, that the art dates didn't align. Reddit threads popped up, digging into Ethan's timeline, and someone, God bless the internet detectives, found a photo of Ethan bragging about his marketing trick at that party. By the time morning came, the narrative had flipped. Now Ethan was trending. #Ethan the manipulator, #justice for Sienna. I didn't post anything. I didn't need to. Silence this time was my power. The messages poured in. People apologized. Old clients wanted me back. Journalists begged for interviews, but I wasn't done yet. Because revenge, real revenge, isn't just about proving them wrong. It's about making them watch you win. So when I was invited to speak at a digital art summit in New York, I agreed on one condition. I would be the final speaker. The one everyone would remember, and fate or irony decided that Ethan's influencer girlfriend would also be there. She was on the lineup too, talking about digital branding. Perfect. As I boarded the plane, I looked out the window, my reflection faint against the city lights. For the first time in a long time, I felt calm, not broken, not vengeful, just ready, because this time I wouldn't let them destroy my voice. I would make the whole world listen. New York, the city where everything began. And where everything would end. When I stepped into the Art Summit Hall, I felt the hum of ambition, the kind of energy that buzzes through people chasing recognition. Flashes from cameras, Laughter echoing down glass corridors, the world of art and influence was the same as ever. Beautiful, polished, and shallow, I walked in quietly, dressed in a black tailored suit. No one recognized me yet. To them, I was still Nova Hale, the mysterious digital artist who'd taken the internet by storm. The events coordinator greeted me nervously. "We're honored you agreed to speak," she said. I smiled, calm but sharp. It's time people heard the truth behind the art. Ethan was there, of course he was. Standing near the front, shaking hands with sponsors, pretending to be the visionary he had never been. He didn't see me yet, but I saw the faint exhaustion in his eyes. His empire was crumbling. Brands had begun cutting ties. The comments on his posts filled with doubt. And his new girlfriend, Luna, stood beside him, picture. Perfect smile, designer heels, eyes that flickered every few seconds toward him, like she wasn't sure what version of him she'd get that day. I almost pitied her. Almost. The panels began discussions about AI art, online ethics, digital ownership. Then came her segment, building a personal brand with authenticity. I sat quietly in the front row, listening as she spoke about truth and integrity. The same words that had been ripped from me 2 years ago. When she finished, polite applause followed. Then the host announced our final guest, the anonymous artist known as Nova Hale. The lights dimmed. My presentation began, a massive digital screen flashing through my art pieces. The broken frame, the hands that burned me, the Phoenix Project. Each piece pulsed with light as I narrated, my voice steady through the microphone. Every painting you've seen tonight is born from betrayal, from the cost of trusting people who use love as a weapon. This is not just art, it's evidence of what happens when lies become louder than truth. A hush fell over the hall. Ethan froze. He knew that voice. I took a breath, then continued, stepping into the light. "My name isn't Nova Hale." Gasps rippled through the crowd. "My name is Sienna Blake, and 2 years ago I was destroyed online by the man sitting right there." I turned toward Ethan. Every camera in the room followed. He stood motionless, face pale, jaw clenched. He fabricated messages. He manipulated evidence. He turned my community against me, stole my work, and called it his own. And for years I stayed silent, until I realized silence protects the wrong people. A murmur rose. Phones were already recording. Tonight, I don't want sympathy. I want awareness. For every creator who's been erased by someone louder, richer, or more charming. For every woman who's been told to stay quiet. This, I gestured at the art projected behind me, is what survival looks like. Applause erupted. It wasn't polite. It was thunderous, raw, real. Ethan tried to speak, his voice cracking through the microphone someone shoved in his face. "She's lying again," but it was too late. A journalist shouted, "We have the proof, Ethan. Your old assistant leaked the files." Gasps again, then murmurs, then silence. I didn't need to say another word. He turned and stormed out, cameras flashing behind him, Luna trailing uncertainly after. The crowd parted for me like the tide. The aftermath. By the next morning, every major publication had the story. Artist exposes ex, boyfriend's lies live on stage. From cancelled to celebrated, the resurrection of Sienna Blake. My follower count exploded, but it didn't feel like before. This time it wasn't about validation. It was about truth and the hundreds of messages I received from people who'd been through the same kind of quiet, invisible destruction. One message stood out. It was from Luna. "I didn't know what he did to you. I'm sorry I left him. Thank you for showing me who he really is." I stared at her message for a long time, then replied simply, "We both survived. That's enough." 6 months later, I held my first solo exhibition in New York. The centerpiece was a new painting, a golden bird emerging from ashes. Its title, "Forgiven." As people gathered around, I stood quietly in the corner. No spotlight, no speech this time. A woman approached and asked, "Are you Sienna Blake?" I smiled. "Sometimes, but mostly, I'm just someone who finally learned how to begin again." She looked at the painting and whispered, "It's beautiful." I nodded, "So is freedom." And for the first time since everything fell apart, I felt it not revenge, not triumph, but peace. Because the best revenge isn't destruction. It's rebuilding yourself so powerfully that the world can't look away.